The clock on the wall ticked with a slow, steady rhythm, each second dragging out like it didn't want to move. In the faint flicker of the fireplace, shadows danced uneasily across the living room walls. Michael sat alone in his leather armchair, absent-mindedly running a finger along the edge of the glass in his hand. The whiskey inside remained untouched, swirling gently as if time itself was stalling. But Michael wasn't really there. Not completely. Rachel was late. Again. She had promised to be back early tonight. Just a quick gathering at the office, she'd said, smiling in that casual, comforting way of Hayes. Nothing wild. Just a few drinks with the team. That had been hours ago. Michael let out a long breath, jaw tightening. He never considered himself the jealous kind. He had always trusted her. At least, he used to. Something had shifted. Over the past few months, Rachel had started to pull away. She wasn't as present. Her laughter, once easy and frequent, had become rare. Her tone, once warm, had cooled. And then there were the late nights. At first, he chalked it up to work stress. Big deadlines, team demands, all part of the job. But the late returns home had multiplied, and the reasons had started to sound thinner each time. Tonight felt different. He didn't know why. He just knew. Then, sound. The front door creaked open, the hinges groaning as if they, too, had grown tired of waiting. Michael turned toward it, his fingers tightening around the glass. Rachel stepped into the entryway, pausing under the dim light. For a heartbeat, Michael just stared at her. She was barefoot. Her hair was wild and tangled like she'd run through the wind. Her thick wool coat was wrapped tightly around her, both hands clenching the fabric like a shield. Her breathing came fast and uneven. Her eyes, wide, frantic, scanned the room before finally landing on him. Michael rose from his seat, slowly, carefully. Rachel. His voice was steady, but inside, his chest clenched. She swallowed, tried to speak, but no sound came. Then, as if bracing herself, she said, "Michael, don't go into the garage." The silence that followed was heavy, not empty, charged. It wasn't a suggestion, not even a warning. It was a plea. A chill crept down his spine. "What?" he asked, brows drawing together. Rachel shook her head hard, almost frantically. "Just don't." "Okay." She turned abruptly and disappeared down the hallway, still gripping her coat. A second later, the bedroom door slammed shut. Michael didn't move. His thoughts collided like cars on a foggy road, each one more disturbing than the last. He had expected her to come home a little tipsy, maybe laughing, maybe smelling of wine. But this? She looked like someone who had seen something she couldn't unsee, or someone running from something that was still chasing her. His eyes drifted to the garage door. Closed. Still. But the house no longer felt quiet. It felt like it was holding its breath. Like something else was here, just beneath the surface. Something unseen. Something waiting. His pulse quickened. What was she so afraid he'd find? He turned the knob. The garage door creaked open, and a rush of cold air wrapped around him like a warning. He stepped inside. A single bulb buzzed and flickered overhead, casting warped shadows across the cluttered garage. Something wasn't right. The air smelled strange, faintly metallic, mixed with motor oil and stale dust. His eyes moved quickly, scanning the space. The toolbox was where it always sat today. Shelves still held old boxes, forgotten parts, half-finished projects. But then he saw them. Footprints. Bare ones. Pressed into the thin layer of dust across the concrete floor. They led toward the back corner, near the workbench. And then he heard it. A muffled sound. Low. Strained. A grunt. Barely there beneath the flickering hum of the overhead light. Michael's heart pounded in his ears. He moved, slow and silent. He moved forward, drawn by the muffled noise. His breathing slowed, each exhale measured, his hands unconsciously clenching into fists at his sides. And then he saw him. A man, tied at the wrists and ankles with thick strips of duct tape, his limbs bent at unnatural angles from what looked like hours of resistance. His face was flushed, dark hair slicked with sweat, and his eyes, wide, pleading, locked instantly onto Michael's the moment they met. Michael stopped cold. A sharp chill cut through him. Recognition set in like a blade. He knew this man. Luke Parker, Rachel's co-worker. The one she always brought up in casual stories. The one she stayed late with on project deadlines. And now he was here, in Michael's garage, half naked, bound, helpless. Luke jerked violently against the tape, his muffled groans growing more urgent, more panicked. Michael's heart was pounding. His thoughts spiraled as he tried to make sense of the surreal image before him. How did Luke get here? Why was he restrained? And where the hell was Rachel? His stomach twisted. A slow, unsettling calm washed over him as he took another step forward. The faint scrape of his shoes on the concrete made Luke flinch so hard he nearly toppled sideways. Michael crouched beside him, his gaze locked onto the man's terrified face. Up close, he saw the sweat glistening on Luke's skin, the tremor in his limbs, the sheer terror in his wide, darting eyes. Michael tilted his head slightly, voice quiet, unnervingly composed. "Well now, how exactly?" he asked. "Did you wind up here?" Luke let out a frantic noise beneath the gag, his mouth stretching against the tape. His head shook wildly, eyes pleading, trying to speak through layers of panic and adhesive. Michael didn't speak. He just studied him. There were only two possibilities. Either Luke had broken in and found himself in this bizarre situation, or someone had deliberately put him here. And Michael had a very strong feeling which answer was more likely. His jaw tensed. The truth pressed heavy on his chest. Rachel had told him, begged him, not to come in here. And now, in the cold, silent garage, staring down at the restrained, shivering body of her colleague, Michael finally understood why. He remained motionless for a beat, taking it all in, the weak, jerking movements, the near-nakedness, the sheer look of dread etched across Luke's face. His skin was pale with fear. His only clothing, a pair of boxer briefs, offered no comfort against the chill of the concrete floor. His cries were muffled, barely breaking past whatever had been shoved into his mouth beneath the duct tape. Michael didn't rush to react. No fury surged up, no shouting, just a strange, icy composure that settled deeper with every breath. He stepped closer again, slow, deliberate. The sound of his boots echoed faintly. The overhead light flickered, casting shifting, broken shadows along the garage walls. Then, without a word, Michael leaned down and tore the duct tape from Luke's mouth in one fluid pull. The moment it came off, Luke gasped, a harsh, ragged sound, then stumbled over his words as they came out in a flood. "Dude, listen, this isn't what it looks like," he stammered, voice high with panic. Michael regarded him, head tilted slightly, as if examining something pinned under glass. "Not what it looks like," he repeated, his tone dry, unnervingly measured. "That's funny, because it looks exactly like what it looks like." Lucas, Michael now remembered her calling him, tried uselessly to rise, but the restraints kept him writhing helplessly on the floor. His breathing was erratic. Each word trembled. Rachel, she said it was a joke." He sputtered, eyes flicking toward the garage door as though salvation might appear. "Like a prank, just messing around. Man, she didn't mean anything by it." He blinked rapidly, clearly hoping Michael might buy into the story. Michael let the words settle, tasting the absurdity of them. He gave a short breath through his nose, almost like a laugh he didn't let escape. "A joke?" he echoed. Luke nodded quickly. "Yeah, man, she was just being, I dunno, playful, and then she tied me up and—" The rest of the sentence died on his tongue. His face twisted as he scrambled to think of something, anything, that might make this sound remotely believable. Michael lowered himself again, until their eyes were level, and waited. Michael leaned an elbow onto his knee, his eyes locked on Luke, unreadable. His voice came out low, almost hushed. "So, and then what?" Luke's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. I don't know, man. She just left. She was drunk, all right? Wasn't thinking straight." Michael nodded slowly, the gesture thoughtful, detached. He tapped a finger lightly on his thigh. "So let me get this right," he said, each word measured. "You're telling me my wife, my loyal, devoted wife, thought it to be hilarious to undress a guy, tie him up in our garage, and then just vanish Luke's eyes flicked wildly around the room, searching for an exit that didn't exist. I swear, dude, I didn't. This wasn't. I didn't do anything. She. He was unraveling quickly. Every excuse crumbled as soon as it passed his lips. Michael didn't say a word. He let the silence thicken like smoke. In the background, the low hum of the furnace rumbled on. A distant drip echoed from the pipes. The tension in the room was heavy, almost physical, as truth clawed its way through the web of lies. Then, footsteps. Quick, uneven. The door to the house slammed open, ricocheting against the wall. Rachel stood in the doorway, breathless. Her skin pale, her eyes darting a wild blend of fear and challenge. Her fists were clenched tight at her sides, shoulders rigid, her chest rising and falling with sharp, erratic breaths. "Michael," she began, her voice high and overly rehearsed, "whatever he told you, it's not true." Michael didn't flinch. He remained crouched beside Luke, expression unreadable, gaze steady. He didn't answer, just watched. No yelling, no chaos, no theatrical burst of fury. That wasn't his way. Instead, he rose slowly, absorbing every detail. The ragged breath in Rachel's throat, the quivering fear in Luke's bound frame, the sting of betrayal staining the air. He said nothing, just stood and let the quiet work its pressure. Rachel was the first to crack. "I can explain," she said, her voice trembling, trying and failing to sound composed. "No," Michael said sharply, but without raising his voice. His tone was calm, clinical, final. "You can't. And even if you could, I'm not interested." He pulled out his phone, the blue-white light of the screen lighting up his face in the dim garage. With a few taps, he activated the camera. Rachel's voice caught. "What are you doing?" Michael didn't look at her. "Creating a record." One word, heavy with purpose. He moved methodically, shifting the angle of his phone to capture Luke in all his disgrace, sweaty, disheveled, stripped his underwear, bound at the wrists and ankles, humiliated. The flash blinked. Luke flinched violently. "Dude, please, don't." Luke's voice was cracking, desperate. Michael tilted his head as he lowered the phone slightly, eyes narrowing with quiet disdain. "Why? You didn't seem embarrassed a few minutes ago." Rachel lunged for the phone, trying to grab it from his hand, but Michael anticipated her easily and stepped back, holding it out of reach. "Come on, Rachel," he said, voice calm but cutting. "This is nothing compared to what you've already done, right? Just another night of fun. Or maybe another night of humiliating your husband." Her face twisted in frustration. But beneath it, he saw what he was waiting for. Fear, not guilt, not shame. Panic, and that was what he needed. "I wasn't," she started, but Michael had already turned away from her. He dropped back into a crouch, eye level again with Luke, who was still trembling. "You know what's interesting?" Michael murmured, absently tapping the screen of his phone. "I gave her everything. Stability, trust, loyalty." His eyes sharpened. "And yet, here we are." Luke's throat clicked as he swallowed, trying to meet Michael's gaze but failing. "I didn't mean for this to happen," Luke said hoarsely. "Rachel, she. Save it." Michael let out a short, humorless laugh. "Let me guess. It just happened. You didn't think it would go this far." He stood slowly, letting his eyes shift back to Rachel, who now looked like she was made of glass, one wrong word from shattering. "How long?" Michael asked. Rachel opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her thoughts were spinning, searching for a lie that might still work. "I said," Michael repeated, voice quieter this time, but heavier, darker. "How long?" Rachel's shoulders dropped, her gaze turning toward Luke, not out of remorse, but as if silently begging him for help, as if the man writhing on the floor could somehow bail her out of the mess she made. That was the moment Michael felt it. The anger, not because she cheated, he had already made his peace with that, but because even now, she still thought she could win, still believed she could manipulate the moment. Michael's hand tightened around the phone. "Let's make this interesting," he said, voice smooth as ice. He stepped toward her, snatched her phone from the bench behind her, and unlocked it with a quick flick of his thumb. Rachel gasped, panic flooding her face. "Michael, don't." "Oh!" He lifted an eyebrow. "Why not?" He turned the screen toward himself. "What's on here that you don't want me to see?" Michael swiped through the screen slowly. Images, messages, videos. Some were with Luke, some weren't. Each frame, each line of text, another nail in the coffin. Rachel's complexion went ghostly. "Still bound," Luke muttered under his breath, barely audible. "Oh, God. Oh, man." Michael's lips curved into a slow, cruel smile. "This," he said, lifting the phone so they could both see the damning proof, "is exactly what you owned." The morning sun crept in through half-closed blinds, casting angled shadows across the bedroom like the bars of a quiet prison. The air inside was still, unnervingly so. Outside, a lawnmower buzzed somewhere in the distance. Birds chirped like nothing had happened. But everything had. Michael sat on the edge of the bed, posture straight, hands calm. He hadn't slept much, maybe not at all, but he didn't feel exhausted. He felt alert, sharper than he had in years. There was no fog, no hesitation, just purpose, cold and steady. His phone sat lit on the nightstand, a single tap away from releasing the truth. The files were already compiled, the messages queued. He could hear Rachel's footsteps down the hallway, soft, uncertain. She was awake. Good. He wanted her to sit in that silence, let it grow teeth and tear at her. That kind of mental erosion was far more effective than any shouting ever could be. He stood, rolled his shoulders, flexed his neck, and with the same steadiness he once used to build a home, he pressed send. A whisper of data shot through invisible wires, and the first domino dropped. At Rachel's office, the morning would begin like any other. Coffee brewing, laptops opening, casual chatter as co-workers ease into the day. Then their phones would buzz. One by one, curious fingers would unlock their screens expecting schedules, memos, updates. But instead, they'd find her. Screenshots, threads of texts, wickedly flirtatious. Sometimes cruel, sometimes gleeful, always damning. Messages that mocked Michael, as if deceiving him was some kind of sport. I could lie to his face and he'd never know. His too safe to ever suspect a thing. And in one particularly chilling message, "Luke's just a distraction. A game. Something to play with when I'm bored." Then the photos. Not those photos. Michael wasn't careless. But enough. Luke, stripped down and restrained. Panic in his eyes, caught in the fluorescent-lit truth of the garage. A single snapshot, but enough to scorch its way into the memory of anyone who saw it. And then the final blow, a direct message to Rachel's supervisor. Short, precise. "I believe this may be relevant to company conduct policy." No threats, no grand gestures, just exposure, just truth. Michael sat back down, phone face down now, silence returning like a curtain. From the hole, the first notification, then another, then more. He didn't need to look at her to imagine it. Rachel frozen, phone in hand, confusion giving way to dread, the moment when her world began to tilt. Then came the sounds. Phone unlocking, a gasp, the soft, helpless kind, followed by silence. Then, a strangled sound, like a sob that lost its way and crashed into a curse. He counted to 30. Then a full minute, and just as expected, her footsteps, rapid, uneven. The door flew open. Rachel stood there, wild-eyed, her phone clutched like a lifeline she'd already let go of. "What did you do?" she choked out. Her voice was raw, a blend of disbelief and devastation. Michael turned to look at her, calm as a lake in winter. "I told the truth." She looked down again at her screen, as if reading the words over and over might make them vanish. "You," she swallowed, her voice cracking. "You ruined me." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, with a slight shake of the head and a voice devoid of warmth, he said, "No, Rachel, you did that all by yourself.